Angie Dickinson was born Angeline Brown on September 30th, 1931, in Colm, North Dakota. She grew up during the Great Depression in a modest, hard-working family. Her father was a newspaper editor and publisher, and from him she inherited a sharp intellect, a curiosity about the world, and a respect for words and ideas. When the family relocated to California, her horizons widened. She soon revealed a natural poise and presence that set her apart from her peers. She did not initially set out to become a movie star. She attended Glendale Community College and later Immaculate Heart College in Los Angeles, studying business and drama. Almost by chance, her career began when a beauty contest appearance on television in the early 1950s led to a contract with Columbia Pictures, launching her into Hollywood at a time when the studio system still held sway. What distinguished her? Early on was not merely her striking looks, though she was undeniably glamorous, but her grounded, intelligent demeanor.
I don't know.
She projected warmth, wit, and emotional realism, qualities that made audiences feel she was someone they could know, and not just admire from afar. Her early film work throughout the 1950s showed steady growth as she moved from small supporting roles to more substantial parts. A major turning point came with Rio Bravo, directed by Howard Hawks, in which she starred opposite John Wayne and Dean Martin. As Feathers, a confident and sensual saloon singer, she delivered a performance that was playful yet strong, embodying a woman who could hold her own among powerful men without sacrificing femininity or independence. The role made her a star and cemented her reputation for blending toughness with vulnerability. Throughout the 1960s, she enjoyed a prolific and varied film career, appearing in dramas, westerns, comedies, and thrillers. Films such as Ocean's 11, The Killers, and Point Blank showcased her versatility and willingness to take risks. On Point Blank, her performance opposite Lee Marvin was particularly striking, marked by emotional restraint and psychological complexity that reflected
This place really shaped us, didn't it?
Absolutely. The opportunities were incredible.
It prepared us for anything.
Couldn't agree more.
The polished studio productions of the 1950s and the grittier films of the late 1960s, while her film career flourished. She also became a dominant presence on television. In 1974, she started becoming the first Her portrayal of Sergeant Suzanne Pepper Anderson was grounded.
We need to talk about what happens next.
Who was authoritative, intelligent and empathetic at a time when female characters were often relegated to secondary roles. The series was a major hit and left a lasting cultural impact, inspiring future generations of female-led crime dramas as the years progressed. She chose her roles more selectively. In Dressed to Kill, she introduced herself to a new generation of audiences and reaffirmed her fearless approach to acting. Even as Hollywood changed and roles for women of her generation became rarer, she remained respected not only for her talent, but for her integrity and authenticity.
Welcome back to the show.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
We're thrilled to have you.
In the 1990s, she continued to reinvent herself. In Wild Palms, produced by Oliver Stone, she delivered a chilling performance as the sadistic militant sister of Senator Tony Kreutzer, portrayed by Robert Loggia.
This is such an honor to be here with PBS tonight.
Directed by Gus Van Sant and co-starring Uma Thurman, playing a ruthless Montana spa owner with unapologetic ferocity. Rather than soften the role, she leaned fully into its excesses, again defying expectations. Off-screen, her independence was just as striking. In November 1993, she made headlines when she walked off the set of a proposed This Is Your Life special meant to celebrate her career. Refusing to participate in a format she felt misrepresented her, the moment became emblematic of her fierce self-respect and refusal to let Hollywood define her narrative. Her career momentum continued into the mid-1990s. In 1995, director Sidney Pollack cast her in Sabrina, starring Harrison Ford, where she brought sophistication and bite to a supporting role. That same year, she appeared in The Maddening alongside Burt Reynolds and in the comedy The Associate, moving effortlessly between drama and humor. In 1997, she delighted audiences with a self-aware appearance on The Larry Sanders Show, Reuniting, with Rip Torn in a performance that blended nostalgia, wit, and lingering chemistry. Her personal life unfolded with similar complexity. In 1952, she married Gene Dickinson, a former college football player. Though the marriage ended in divorce in 1960 after years of separation, she chose to keep her married name, reflecting both personal identity and professional continuity. During this period, She formed a close friendship with influential economist John Kenneth Galbraith and his wife Catherine Galbraith, traveling extensively while Galbraith served as U.S. ambassador to India. These experiences were later chronicled in his memoirs Ambassador's Journal and A Life in Our Times. In 1965, she married renowned composer Burt Bacharach. Their marriage lasted 16 years and produced a daughter.
Neki, born on July 12, 1966. Neki
was autistic, and her struggles profoundly affected both parents. Her tragic death by suicide on January 4, 2007, cast a long shadow over Dickinson's later years. Bacharach passed away in 2023, closing the final chapter of their shared history at 94. Angie Dickinson speaks with the clarity that only time can grant. When she opens up about Ricky Nelson, it is not with scandal but with tenderness and understanding. She recalls that when they crossed paths in the early 1960s, both were navigating very different kinds of fame. She was already established, while he was America's golden boy, a teen idol adored to the point of confinement. The real divide, she says, was not age, but experience. Nelson had been famous since childhood.
I don't know.
That adoration became a prison. She describes him as thoughtful and shy beneath his public image. Sweet, polite, and deeply introspective, with a sadness that came from never being able to discover who he was without an audience watching. He wanted to be taken seriously, not just screamed at. Their connection, she insists, was never about publicity. People talking and trying to understand each other in a world that never slowed down. As their lives moved in different directions, she never forgot him or what he represented. Fame, she says softly, can freeze you in time and stop you from growing. His death in 1985 hit her harder than she expected, feeling unfinished, as though he never had the chance to live the life he wanted. Now she speaks not with bitterness, but compassion. Ricky Nelson, she says, was not weak but sensitive, and sensitivity is dangerous in a world that rewards image over truth. In finally telling her truth, she does not rewrite history. Humanizes it. Time, she believes, eventually strips away illusion. What remains are not headlines or rumors, but
This
moments
place
of
really
genuine
shaped us,
connection
didn't it?
and understanding.
Absolutely. The opportunities were
Looking back
incredible.
now,
It
she sees
prepared us
Ricky
for
Nelson
anything.
not as a
Couldn't agree
tragic
more.
symbol of lost youth or crushed potential, but as a real person who was quietly searching for space to breathe. He wanted to grow, to be taken seriously, to be more than the image that had been built around him before he was old enough to choose it for himself. That struggle, she feels, was invisible to most people, hidden behind applause and admiration. Angie Dickinson says she often wonders how different his life
We need to talk about what happens next.
might have been if the world had allowed him to change, to age, to fail and evolve like anyone else. Fame, she reflects, rarely offers that permission. It locks people into versions of themselves that audiences want to preserve, not question. For someone as sensitive as Ricky, that pressure was especially heavy. He carried it quietly, without complaint, and that quiet strength is what she remembers most now. In the final chapters of her own long life, she speaks with no desire to correct the past or dramatize it. There is no bitterness in her voice, only acceptance.
Welcome back
She
to
hopes
the
people remember
show.
Ricky Nelson
Thank you,
not
it's
just
great
as a
to be
teen
here.
idol or a
We're
tragic
thrilled to
death,
have you.
but as an artist who wanted more, and as a human being who felt deeply in a world that rarely made room. For such feeling, for Angie Dickinson, memory has become a place of clarity rather than regret. Hollywood,
This
fame,
is
love,
such an
loss, and
honor
survival all
to
blur
be
together
here with
distance,
PBS
leaving behind
tonight.
something simpler and truer. In sharing her reflections at 94, she is not revealing secrets so much as offering perspective. History does not always need rewriting, she seems to say. Sometimes it only needs to be seen with empathy. As she reflects further, Angie Dickinson admits that age has softened her relationship with the past. Events that once felt sharp and unresolved now appear rounded by context and understanding. She no longer judges her younger self for what she did not know or could not change. Youth, she says, moves forward believing there will always be time later to make sense of things. It is only with distance that meaning begins to emerge. She speaks about how Hollywood trained people to hide vulnerability, especially in an era when strength was equated with silence. Emotions were expected to be controlled, personal struggles managed privately, and public images maintained at all costs. She learned early how to navigate that world, but she also learned what it demanded in return. The price, she says, was often paid quietly behind closed doors, where no cameras were allowed to follow. When she thinks of Ricky now, she does not picture stages or screaming crowds. She remembers conversations, pauses, the way he listened, more than he spoke. She remembers a young man trying to reconcile who he was with, who the world insisted
I've
he
been
remain.
thinking about us.
That tension,
And I really believe we
she
can make this
believes,
work if we
followed
just
him
talk it
everywhere.
through, but we need
Even
to be honest
success
with
could
each
not
other.
free him from it. If anything, success made the trap tighter. She acknowledges that people still hunger for simple stories. They want romance or scandal, heroes or victims. Complexity makes them uncomfortable. But life, she insists, is rarely that clean. Relationships are layered. People enter each other's lives for reasons that may not fully reveal themselves until years later. What she shared with Ricky was not something that fit easily into headlines. And perhaps that is why it has been misunderstood for so long. There is a long pause when she talks about loss. Not just his, but all the losses that accumulate across a lifetime. Friends fade away, opportunities close, eras end. She has lived long enough to watch entire worlds disappear, replaced by new ones that operate by different rules. Fame itself has changed, becoming faster, louder, and more consuming. Looking at it now, she wonders how anyone survives it without losing parts of themselves. She says she feels fortunate that she entered the industry at a time when privacy, when perfect, still existed. There were limits, boundaries that could not easily be crossed. Even so, the pressure was relentless. She was watched, judged, and defined by others from a young age. The difference, she notes, is that she came to fame as an adult, and Ricky did not. That distinction matters more than people realize.
I don't
As the
know.
conversation drifts, she speaks about compassion as the greatest lesson time has taught her. Compassion for others, yes, but also for oneself. She no longer believes in harsh self-criticism or endless regret. Everyone, she says, does the best they can with what they understand at the time. Growth comes later, often quietly when no one is looking. She smiles when asked if she thinks about legacy. It is not something she worries about. Films fade, shows age, reputations shift. What matters, she believes, are the moments of honesty that pass between people. Those moments may not be recorded, but they leave traces that last far longer than applause. If she is remembered at all, she hopes it is as someone who tried to be truthful. Even when truth was inconvenient, her voice grows softer when she returns to Ricky one last time. She says she hopes he finally found peace wherever he is. That the weight he carried lifted at some point, and that he knows he was seen, at least by a few people, for who he truly was. She does not speak in absolutes or grand conclusions. Life, she has learned, rarely offers them. At 94, she feels no need to explain herself anymore. The urgency to be understood.
This place really shaped us, didn't it?
Absolutely. The opportunities were incredible.
It prepared us for anything.
Couldn't agree more.
And that is all right. Not everything meaningful needs to be clarified for public consumption. What remains is a sense of calm. She has lived many lives within one lifetime. Loved deeply, lost painfully, and endured change with grace. The past no longer calls out for correction. It rests where it belongs, shaped by memory rather than noise.
We need to talk about what happens next.
People are more than their images. Fame does not protect the heart. Sensitivity is not weakness. Time, if one is lucky enough to have it, reveals what really mattered all along. She leans back and reflects on how silence can sometimes be more revealing than confession. There were years when she chose not to speak, not because she had nothing to say, but because the world was not listening in the right way. Silence, she learned, could be a form of self-preservation. It allowed her to keep certain memories intact, unexamined by strangers, untouched by speculation. Only now, with time having
Welcome
dulled the
back
hunger
to
for
the
judgment,
show.
does she
Thank you,
feel
it's
that
great
words
to
can
be
exist
here.
without
We're thrilled to have
being
you.
distorted. She talks about aging without sentimentality. Growing older, she says, strips away performance. There's no longer a need to impress, to convince, to compete. What remains is presence. She wakes
This
up aware
is
of how
such an
fragile life is,
honor
yet also how
to be
resilient it
here
can be.
with
The body
PBS
slows,
tonight.
the world changes, but the inner voice becomes clearer. That clarity is what allows her to look back without anger. She acknowledges that history often reduces women to who they loved rather than who they were. She spent decades watching her work, her discipline, and her choices pushed aside in favor of romantic footnotes. That reduction never sat well with her, but she also understands now that resisting it publicly would have cost her peace. Instead, she let time do the work. Time, she believes, is the most honest editor. When she considers the younger generations, she feels both concern and hope. Fame now arrives faster and reaches deeper with fewer protections. Young people are exposed before they have learned who they are. She recognizes the same vulnerability she once saw in Ricky, magnified by a world that never turns away. Her hope is that conversations about mental health, boundaries, and humanity will continue to grow. Offering what her generation rarely received, she admits that grief never truly leaves. It changes shape, becoming quieter, less sharp, but it stays. The loss of her daughter, the loss of people she loved, and the loss of versions of herself all coexist within her. She does not define herself by that grief. She has learned to carry it without letting it harden her. As the light fades in the room, she speaks about gratitude. Not the loud,
I've been thinking
performative
about
kind,
us,
but a
and I
steady
really believe we can
appreciation
make
for
this work
having
if we
lived
just talk
fully.
it through, but we
She
need to be
traveled,
honest with
worked,
each other.
loved, resisted, and endured. She made mistakes and survived them. She witnessed history from the inside and stepped away when it no longer felt honest. There is no final revelation, no dramatic conclusion she wishes to offer. Life, she says, is not a story that wraps itself neatly. Drifts, overlaps, contradicts itself. Truth lives in fragments, in tone, in what is remembered quietly rather than announced loudly, and so she lets the past rest again. Not hidden, not denied, just placed gently where it belongs. What she offers now is not a confession, but a reminder that behind every legend is a person. Behind every image, a private struggle, and behind every long life, a series of small, human moments that mattered more than anyone ever knew.